So, namaste. Welcome to Satsang today. And really, Satsang is our life. It is our whole everything, isn't it, Satsang? We call it a formal event like this, but really it is everything that's going on for us at all times. So if we're aware of that, then we can come to this kind of meeting able to get the most from it. And in that, what is it that we need to perhaps get from a particular satsang? And for me, that's what I wanted to focus on today with this session. What's the best use of time like this? And how can we maximize, because everyone is busy and yet we've taken the time here to do this, to be here. What's the most important thing we can get from this session today? So for me, just to realize on my own journey that there was a most important thing, that there was one thing that I could focus on in my practice that would give me the maximum results being peace, an end to suffering, an end to the ability to suffer, and a breakthrough into kind of love and joy, as well as peace, a deep, rich silence, a sense that everything is just okay, actually, a sense of completeness and adequacy in ourselves. So I wanted to look at today what that most important thing could be. What is the one thing that if we focused upon it would give us the most leverage, momentum in our awakening, deepening, quickening in what we're seeing to be true. So for me, that was this tendency that I had, and that everyone does have, to identify as the seeker. So we believe ourselves to be a separate being. And that separate being seems to be moving towards awakening to some kind of endpoint where the seeker's trajectory and the truth meet, and then there's only one. There's some kind of momentum forward that the seeker is on, trying to get somewhere, trying to change themselves, trying to change karmic patterns, everything like that. And for me, this, after a while, became clear this was the most important thing for me to focus on. If I could keep my attention somehow on this seeker, which sounds contradictory. I know we're always being told to bring our attention away from it, but to just bring attention to the fact that the seeker isn't me, that I'm watching the seeker, the sense of a seeker, then this became really suddenly vitally important. So if I could keep somehow reminding myself that, first of all, what is going on, this moving towards awakening, is not my journey. It is a journey happening, some kind of unfolding. And this became even easier, secondly, when I began to see there is no seeker. Actually, there's no separate being. The presence of thoughts and emotions and experiences all seem to come together to coalesce into this separate being with a history of suffering and a momentum towards awakening. But actually, that doesn't equal a separate seeker. There is no seeker. There's only seeking, which is a kind of activity, something that's just happening, like thoughts are just happening, and there's no thinker of those thoughts. There's just this seeking movement towards some kind of imagined resolution in the future. So maybe the most important thing for me, I began to see, was this understanding that there is no seeker. And I kept proving that to myself. I couldn't find a separate being. There were thoughts in this head, there were emotions in this body, there were experiences happening around this body. Could I prove experientially or disprove the existence of this separate seeker that I was so strongly identified with, someone getting somewhere, someone almost there, someone not getting there, someone failing, someone who's just got one more karmic pattern to transcend before full awakening. You know, the stories we tell ourselves at that point in our evolution. So that's what I really wanted to look at today. What if the seeking is just going on then in front of you? The seeking as an activity, as a doingness with no doer? What if it's just like a way of activity, something that the mind is doing that you really have no responsibility over, no need to change, no need to do anything with? What if that seekingness just grinds to a halt, runs out of momentum, this forward motion eventually stops when you realize that that is not you? So this would seem to me to be the most important thing when I really kind of got serious about my awakening, because I thought I was before, but of course I was perhaps still more interested in being liked, loved, feeling safe, approved of, and all of those other things, which did come anyway. They came anyway, but only when the idea of a seeker and the idea that I was that seeker had dissolved inside. So when I really got serious, there was this period of quite intense spiritual activity, but it was this very fine, small point of focus where I just kept confirming over and over again that there wasn't any seeker that I could find, that I was watching this seeking activity. I was looking at the seeking and not from it. That wasn't me. This whole tangled mess of stuff that is the egoic sense of self, the separate sense of someone, the seeker, is just something that's happening in front of me, the self, the noumenon, the consciousness, the awareness. And that there's nothing I particularly need to do about that. And perhaps even more clearly, there's nothing I can do about that, except come to see that it's not my work to sort that out. So this finest, tiniest point that gave this most pivotal shift, a whole 180 in the awakening, was to see I'm watching this egoic sense of self dissolve, and there's nothing I can or need to do about that. Can you imagine just watching these karmic patterns falling away, and your mind, your someoneness that still seems to be there, even for me, there's just very clear that that's just something happening in front of me. Like if I hold a light up and put an object in front of that light, a shadow is cast on the wall. The shadow seems to have a life of its own. When I'm moving the light around, the shadow moves around. It seems to be something independent, but it's not really. Without the light, it doesn't exist. So just to see, I am the light, and my mind is casting this shadow that appears to be a someone, and it's doing its thing, and it's had this imaginary life of its own. So much have we believed in that someone that we aren't even sometimes aware that we're the one watching that. And that all that's really happening is we're watching this kind of someoneness, this seeker, begin to fall apart. Why is it falling apart? Why is it harder and harder to do the same old activities as a seeker? Because you, the light of reality, are losing interest in that. You've been spinning all of these plates for millennia in different bodies, trying to get to these imaginary destinations, and now you're just utterly losing interest in that, and more falling in love with what's casting that shadow, actually, rather than the shadow itself. It's mesmerizing for a while, isn't it? How it dances and moves and does all of that. So could we take a look today and just right now, if you want to, just for a moment, if you can accept, just for a moment here, because a moment is enough, that maybe none of that is anything you need to do anything about. Maybe these karmic patterns persist, these problems persist for the seeker. The lack of awakening persists for the seeker because we still feel we are that on some level. And maybe it sounds to the mind irresponsible to just step out of our problems, not try to fix them. Especially this greatest problem of all, how do I reach awakening? And for a long time, I resisted doing this or seeing this because of this idea. And when I actually came to understand, I am the light of awareness. And that only gets confused when that light projects through the mind and forms the shape of a someone, not an actual someone, not an actual seeker, just the shape of it. Those problems began to resolve themselves anyway from that place. And one by one, they have all turned around into something utterly beautiful. The shadow is still dancing, but it's doing it on its own, and it's beautiful. It's this exquisite dance of someoneness. The everythingness pretending to be someoneness, and it's beautiful. And it's nothing to do with me. It's just a show that I'm watching, just as you're watching right now, your own beautiful show in front of you. So what if the only thing, and also happens to be the most important thing that you could do, the only thing you can do is also the most important thing you could do, is to confirm that I can see this forward momentum. I can see these thoughts. I can see this sense of someone and its most important journey. Therefore, I cannot be it. And if you want extra confirmation, just trying to find that seeker right now, trying to find a thinker of thoughts. There's thoughts, but where's the thinker? Thoughts are happening in your head. Is there a thinker? Seeking is happening. You might have come to the satsang trying to get something out of it, trying to use it for something. But where's the seeker? Seeking is happening. Is there a seeker? Does the presence of thoughts, emotions, and experiencing automatically make a person a separate being? Or is it just thoughts, emotions, and experiences? That's perhaps the most important question you might ever ask yourself. And when I asked myself that, I was astonished to find that they were just thoughts, and the sense of someone, the sense of a seeker, someone who was going to find or reach awakening, was just that, just a sense, not an actuality. So in that there is infinite and immediate peace. What if you're just watching this epic journey from ignorance to truth happening in front of you? And it is an epic journey, but nonetheless, is it yours? That journey will still carry on. The seekingness dissolves into discovering, and that's just going on in front of you, too. Can you find a seeker? It can't be that thoughts and emotions and experiences are the seeker, the separate being, because they're all gone at nighttime in deep sleep. They're also gone whenever there's any, when the body goes through its death transition. They're gone. Before the body came, not possible to have thoughts. Even in deep, deep meditation, where you lose awareness of the world and duality and time and change. Absolutely no seeker there either. And no seeking. And even just while you're listening to this, no seeker. Because you're not thinking. Just listening. So if thoughts and experiences and karmic patterns and emotions are just those, they're just happening while the body's present, playing out, where's the separate being then? Where's the one who fell from grace and has to come back into God's embrace? So let's not confuse the activity of seeking with the seeker. Maybe all that's happening here is the infinite light of our being, the awareness, the God self, the divine reality, in the shape that it takes as a human being, is switching from one mode to another gradually. It's switching from trying to get somewhere to recognition, discovery, unfolding. What if that's the only thing that's occurring here? And that the pivotal point in that is where it recognizes that is not me. Nothing wrong with that. Human body experiences all of that. It's beautiful. Once you know it's not your responsibility, that there is not a seeker to find anything, even. So let's just for a moment here, if you want to, just to feel it out and find out how you feel, what remains when there's nothing else for you to do. You're just watching this. Deeply in love with what you're watching, not cold and distant, deeply in love with it. But it's not your responsibility to sort it out. You're just watching it sort itself out, somehow, miraculously, amazingly. All the problems of my seeker got resolved, but I never resolved them. They just kind of turned around or vanished or dried up when I stopped identifying with this forward motion. Mind is in motion. Mind is always moving towards something. And we are utterly still. Can you feel the finality in that, the absoluteness, the completeness, the already homeness about it? The never leftness. The only thing is I'm coming to see clearly where I'm looking from. I thought I was this seeker looking back at the light of my being, wanting to get back. And now I'm looking and saying, hang on, I'm looking at that. This fundamental shift in my reality. What if I've had it completely backwards? I am the light, not the shadow. Or eventually I'm all of those. It doesn't matter. The shadow and the light are the same thing. So what if today you take from this satsang the fact that there is something that is the most important thing, and you decide to keep your focus on that most important thing, no matter what problems your mind gives you to fix as a distraction from this. Your mind doesn't want you to let go of identifying with the seeker as the seeker, because it thinks it will disappear and cease to exist. But it only thinks that because it thinks there is a seeker and it can't see the truth. There's only seeking. So I see we have one hand up here. I'm just going to, before I come to you, Nikki, I'm going to try to get through 2 of these questions that have been sent in. I'll take 4 questions online altogether. So let me go to these 2 and then I'll come to you, Nikki. First one says, hello, Helen. Much thanks for all you do. I'll try to make this as direct as possible. I've been trying to work through some issues I have with my husband's alcoholism. Just let me say I am content with our marriage. We do enjoy spending time together. I do get really irritated and sometimes angry when he spends too much money on alcohol. I would prefer that he did not drink because it does affect his health. But this is, I realize, my perspective, not his. I think I could also say that if the alcohol was always free, it would most likely not bother me as much. That being said, I get the sense that this entire issue has nothing to do with my husband and everything to do with some belief I have with not enough money, trying to control, not being good enough, or something else. Really do not know. And the one thing I do know from this spiritual journey is that I do not know anything. Very wise. I feel like my husband's drinking alcohol triggers something in me about myself that I just do not want to face. If I can put it into words, my emotions this triggers would be fear, irritation, and some feeling of it not being fair. Is it possible that this alcoholism issue is a belief that I have about myself that I'm not aware of? Hopefully this is clear enough for you to get a sense of what I'm trying to communicate. Much love, and thank you so much for your perspective. So it could be both, right? It could be that there is something in you that you don't want to look at, that this is a reflection of. And it could also be showing you that you have a desire there that perhaps you are not fully embracing. Maybe you would like your husband's behavior to be different for his own health, and things like that. So could you acknowledge that perhaps there is a desire there, and that's okay? Of course, you're going to want him to be healthy and well and all of that. And of course, you're going to want to have enough money. Of course, that's just a no-brainer, isn't it? Everyone's going to want that. And if there is something in you that you don't want to see that this is a reflection of, which for me, for the most part, my whole journey was being shown things by my experiences that I wasn't willing to see or hadn't even known they were there. Usually that I had seen at some point, but I'd kind of pushed away again unconsciously. I don't want to look at that. I can't look at that. So can you just accept for this moment here, as we're going through this, that you have something within you that you don't want to see? Because we probably all do. Something that I don't want to look at inside myself. And do you have to blame yourself for that? Maybe even this not wanting to see it, whatever it is, some belief, some idea about yourself. Maybe this not wanting to see it was all you could do to push it away. That's the only option you had when you thought you were a seeker, someone. If you don't know how to deal with these beliefs, and really we don't know until we are recognizing that they are not us, they don't define us, they are of this imaginary being, this separate being, then really to push it away is the only option we have. So can you start by just forgiving yourself that this is perhaps even has been a healthy mechanism up until now? And that the reason this is becoming an issue with the irritation and things like that is because now you're coming to a place where you can look at this as the pure light of being, not as a someone. And from there you can resolve it. Just the urge to see it now, with the forgiveness of yourself, that of course you're not going to want to see something that's painful as a separate being. Nobody does. And if something comes up for me now, I still have this resistance to looking at it. It still comes up. But there's also this immediate embracing of that. That's okay. Of course I wouldn't want to see it. And then I do my best to look at it anyway. So that old mechanism still may be there for quite some time of not wanting to look at something. You don't even really need to know what it is sometimes. The belief itself just vanishes when there's now a willingness to see. The only thing that's been holding it in place is this unwillingness. So it probably is some belief that it's trying to show you, but that process is so much easier without blaming yourself for that. It's the only defense we have against very painful emotions and experiences, to push them away until we know how to move forward as the self. So hope that helps. I'll just read one more. Dear Helen, I feel lots of shame asking your guidance with my query today. I have noticed recently my dad visiting adult sites and looking for relationships online, hiding his real age. I can't do anything about it and feel deeply hurt and helpless at the same time. I am at a much better place with your practices, allowing lots of space between my thoughts with contemplations. Will I be able to be like you, where nothing truly affects my peace? Please guide. Your wisdom, depth, and words are a real treasure for me. Always grateful. So, first I want to address the shame around this, around asking about for help with this. I think that is the issue. That is the issue, rather than the actual situation. The situation itself, there's a feeling of helplessness and feeling deeply hurt, you've said. What if all of that was a reflection of this feeling of shame, that there's something you can't or shouldn't ask of me or any other teacher teaching, that there's something that you have to bring forward, need to bring forward, that you can't do that you shouldn't. Some kind of feeling inside. Can you feel that? And for me, that is the issue here. That is what all of this is about. You feel that shame. And I need to tell you, I have to tell you that I'm so glad that you did bring this forward, even though there's this deep feeling of shame. There were so many things in my own awakening that I felt if I could have told someone, asked for help, that there would have been, I can't ask this though. I can't ask this. And of course, some things are, we have to keep them private because of, protecting people in our lives, things like that. But the very fact that I feel I can't bring something forward is going to perpetuate it in my life. So you can even say something like, there's something I feel deeply shameful about bringing forward. And because of that, I feel I can't bring it forward. Is that what's kind of holding it in place? There's something about me that I don't like about myself. And when I bring it forward, or like about someone else, in this case, I should be able to resolve this inside. That's what the shame is saying, isn't it? I should be able to resolve this on my own, the separate being, which doesn't exist. So it's an impossible problem then, that we go around and around and around in this ever decreasing spiral of shame. So there is a place already inside you where you are not affected by any of this. It doesn't mean you're cold to this or distant. It doesn't mean you wouldn't care about this situation or the well-being of your father and the safety. It just means there's a recognition that my real nature already, the silence of my being, the awareness, the light of being, as I'm calling it today, is already unaffected, already peaceful, and only able to be peaceful. And all that's happening is I'm seeing some aspect, some fragment of my sense of someone that feels ashamed coming up in front of me for resolution. So why don't you feel you could bring this forward? And for me, that is the key to this whole thing shifting here. Do we need to feel ashamed about something happening that we, something happening to this seeking that's going on in front of us? Is there anyone here, any separate being, to actually take ownership of this shame that's coming up? Or is this just a release and shame coming up to be felt and let go of? Seeing clearly that it's not my particular issue. Shame was a big one for me, really heavy emotion, as I'm sure it is for everyone. And the one that we don't want to look at always is shame, always. So if I were in your position, I would focus on that. And you don't have to tell anyone why I feel that, why there's this sense of shame. There's nothing that is, from my perspective at least, too personal, too upsetting, too... there's nothing that anyone could say to me where I would turn around and say, you shouldn't have asked me that. In terms of awakening and spirituality and all of that, because it just doesn't work like that for me. And for your real nature, it doesn't work like that for you either already. So that's where I'd spend my time looking at this. And just because I work through shame over something and I'm willing to say it to someone, doesn't mean I have to express it. Just when I get to that point where I'm willing to, usually it vanishes on its own then. So, okay. Hope that is helpful. But again, just let's see where you work through with that. You can always write back in and let me know where you're up to with it. Okay, so we'll go to Nikki. Thanks for waiting whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you, Helen.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for your teaching as well. Beautifully put. There's some stuff around where you say about the seeker. So there's like the seeker that within me that wants to seek enlightenment as if I need to go someplace. And then there's a part of me I'm away from home. I'm in Thailand. My partner's in the UK. I have stuff going on around sexual drive and intimacy, which I feel shame about. Maybe there's some like unworthiness that I don't deserve to be enlightened or whatever it is. Yes.
Difficult, isn't it? Like, because this feeling of shame, like I was just saying with that previous question, it's can even stop us bringing this forward. So I'm glad you did. And for me, those areas, sexuality, intimacy, they were a major part of where I was feeling shame for a long, extended, well, most of my life, if I'm honest. So it's not an easy subject to bring forward. So you can see this, maybe you can see this double-headed thing. I really, really want this enlightenment, but I really, really don't feel on some level that I deserve it. Can you see that kind of going on?
I can. And is this the same thing? Is this the ego or the thinking, the artness?
Yeah. So most of us would say, right, okay, now I have to just get rid of this shame and realize that I do deserve enlightenment and it will happen. And we could do that, but I tried that and it's an impossible, I tried it for a very long time, in fact, and eventually came to see this isn't my issue. The desire to have enlightenment is not coming from this separate being trying to get towards it, that has to let go of all of this stuff and deserve it or earn it and be ready for enlightenment, whatever is going on in the mind. The desire for enlightenment is enlightenment itself, your real authentic nature already, what you already are, wanting to clearly recognize itself. And that's a different thing there, isn't it? Can you feel the difference in that?
No, I got lost there.
That's okay. That's okay. I really love your honesty. So let's just weigh these two things. So on one hand, there's this imaginary seeker that's trying to deserve and be ready for awakening.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there is awakening itself, which is what you already are, that just wants to recognize itself clearly. So there is this desire for awakening, enlightenment, whatever we're calling it. But where is that desire coming from? That's where I put my attention, because if I go with the seeker, I have to deal with all of this shame, prove myself worthy, and then finally get there, which is impossible because you are never unworthy. You are actually already the light of being, just wanting to clearly recognize itself. So for me, the practice became about, is this really my issue? Do I have to prove myself worthy here? Am I the one feeling this shame, or is there just shame here? And my mind is desperately trying to explain why I feel shameful and coming up with all of these reasons why. What if there's just you and you're here and you're free already? And in that freedom, there's a human body and there's some shame coming up in that human body, and that's all that's happening.
Without attaching the story to it, where it's coming from.
Yeah, and what you have to do about it, that's the big story, isn't it? That's the big one that we all buy. I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
But if you are this giant football stadium and there's one guy running around on the pitch going, I need to fix this, but you're just watching this guy. You are the whole stadium. And we've been identifying with this little guy running around shouting all these stories. It's a very different thing then, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is this shame without any stories about it? When I just let it happen, what happens then?
Would it be shame? If you're identifying with it? If I'm not, I'm not sure. So it just,
does it feel different? Even if you just don't tell any stories about it, does it feel different in your body?
I'm not sure.
Something to explore there, right? If it's not my responsibility to fix, if it's just a vibration and energy that's moving through my body right now, and it doesn't mean anything in the way that I think it doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of enlightenment. It doesn't mean I'm not already the self, the light of being. If I just watch the stories that are presented to me about this shame and what it means that I have to resolve it, or, something like that. What happens to the shame then if I just let it exist the best that I can without buying any stories? I'm never going to like feeling shame because it's low frequency. It feels icky, really sort of sticky. But I don't have to like it, but I can let it exist the best I can without believing any stories around it. There's a resting in that then. There's a peace, a contentment in that, a relaxation.
I'll try it.
No, normally, just to notice what we'd normally do is, I need to overcome this. I need to release this. I need to be worthy, get rid of the shame and feel worthy.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? You know the particular way your own mind would spin those stories.
Yeah.
And for me, I can never see anything wrong with a healthy sexual experience, sexual energy, sexual activity, as long as it's healthy and beneficial for everyone. And yet we all have this shame about it, don't we? I don't know why, but I don't know where that came from. But it's who you are, isn't it? It's just a way of expressing love.
Yeah, but shame's attached to it for some.
Yeah, it's just an old habit. Sexuality equals shame. It's just an old, very concrete neural pathway in our brain, isn't it? But it doesn't have to be if we didn't sort of look at it like this. Perhaps it's just a physical expression of intimacy and love. And we can start to reframe it that way.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very brave. Thank you. And we'll go to Don before we finish.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was listening to the first question about the alcoholism and then, sort of watching the dynamic of my family of origin. And I thought, everything conspires for my awakening, including the 6 a.m. wake up call. And that was really all I could, it just came to me is that I couldn't be here at 6 a.m. with this wonderful group if I hadn't, had all these experiences. And so I'm here allowing myself to be shameless and in bliss, just to be in this concert with this group. So that's all.
Allowing myself to be shameless and in bliss. And that's nothing's had to change. You haven't changed anything. You've just kind of decided, right? Some decision inside. I'm going to allow myself to be shameless. There might be shame, as we've been talking about in this satsang, but I'm just going to allow myself to be already the shameless one.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And
worth getting up at 6 a.m. for, definitely.
Yes. So thank you for setting it at such a beautiful hour.
Well, it's a beautiful hour here in the UK. That's what we could say.
It's a beautiful hour here. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so let's bring it to a close for today. And just want to say that there's been some very brave and powerful sharing here today. And there's certain topics that even in non-duality, there's this kind of, even in truth, there's some topics that a lot of people shy away from, and sexuality is one of those. Sex is even more taboo than death, isn't it, really, to talk about in human society? So, and I just, I don't know, maybe I'm on some kind of mission. Anyway, thank you for those that have shared really, really bravely today about that. I really appreciate it, and your brave courage and sincere desire to change the paradigm. So thank you. Namaste.